Before I launch into any comments, I'll mention one thing, because it's just real world. When we took the case to the United States Supreme Court of Franklin versus Gwinnett County, Gwinnett County is a school district in suburban Atlanta. Ms. Franklin was a young student, a high school student, who had experienced intimacy with a coach who was a teacher. And she was only about 14. When we took that case, the law of the United States was that the only thing a student could get was relief through an order that said the school district had to stop the teacher and create a program to try and assist students. And there was not the ability to get any monetary damages. So we took the case when we were a lot smaller firm, my partner Michael and myself, and we had so much time in it, and it was a contingency, which means we only get paid if we win. We had so much time in that case that we kept losing all the way through the court system. Every court, the Northern District of Georgia and the 11th Circuit, which is the federal court system, said she has a case and she has a claim, but we can only give her relief by telling the school district it needs to stop. And we needed to make some money off the case, so we took it to the United States Supreme Court, and it was the first case that Clarence Thomas, first session that Clarence Thomas was sitting on. And if you've studied anything about Clarence Thomas, you know it was a cantankerous situation of his approval. And because of that situation of his approval, there was a lot of press on this case, which was the first harassment case in front of Clarence Thomas sitting on the United States Supreme Court. We won 9-0, and they said she could get monetary damages. And on the way out of the courthouse, Supreme Court, Greta Van Susteren, who at that point was a young woman, she still is, I don't mean to say she's not, came up to me and said, in one of those types of public questions, Mr. Scavo, and it had so many facts in the question. You know, you've taken this woman on as a client and you fought through all these lower courts to get to where she is now, and it seemed very good, the argument. It looks like you may win, because of course you don't know if you won at that point. And you know, you and your partner must really have a streak in you to want to advance the cause of women. And it was one of those questions, kept going on. And she said, so why did you stick with it? And I said, well, we only make money if we win. And that's a true story, and it did not get in the news. My answers did not make the news. There's really no outline to this presentation. I think to the whole seminar, I think each speaker will take his or her license to give you information that they feel might be helpful. A good starting place for me is to sort of tell you some things about me. I'm 57, and I think that if you're looking for a sign of success, the sign of success that I think is the most accurate is whatever age you are, particularly when you get older, you don't think you're that old. That, I think, is success. My grandfather came from Italy in about 1910, and he came to New York. I was ultimately born in Brooklyn. I have 3 sons. One's a chef in Atlanta. One is joining an advertising agency in New York. And the third is still a college student, like many of you, and he's a junior at University of South Carolina. I've been married for 25 years, and yes, to the same woman. I've practiced law for 32 years at this point, and I'm not slowing down yet. My main office is in Atlanta. Last year, about a year and a half ago now, we opened an office in Savannah. We've built a pretty large firm for where we started, which was with nothing. Myself and my partner knew nobody when we started our firm when we came to Atlanta. We now are approximately 50 lawyers. One last thing, and I say this with a smile, I do make a lot of money. And it's just been the way it is. It wasn't planned, it wasn't expected, it wasn't why I did what I did. Frankly, the first job I took the lowest paying job that I was offered. In 1976, I took a job in Atlanta, Georgia with a law firm for $14,500. I had job offers in New York for $22,500 and in Atlanta for $17,500. And everybody said, why? And I said, I don't really know. I just kind of liked the guys, and I felt that I would start practicing and see where it took me. So it never was a money issue with me. I didn't go after the bucks. I just went after getting a job and wanting to practice. Let me give you a little bit more about me. Everybody who's a student at Savannah State goes to a public university. Well, I went to a public university. I went to SUNY Oswego. Dr. Park, who I played golf with last week, went to SUNY Plattsburgh. How many of you went to a public high school? I went to a public high school. How many of you walked every day to public high school? I walked every day. How many of you had a mom and dad, or have a mom and dad, who both work out of the house? And my mom worked at night. My dad worked in the daytime. And she went to work so she could buy a bicycle for one of my brothers. They never saw each other. They're still married. They're both 86. They've been married 60-something years. But in those years, she'd go to work every night and come home, and he'd go to work in the morning, and they hardly saw each other during the weekday. How many of you have never taken a summer vacation with your family? Me too. We just didn't have the money. How many of you have a father that never finished high school? My father never finished high school, yet he had five boys. I'm one of them, and every one of us is a professional with an undergraduate degree plus more, because he believed in education. How many of you were born in an ethnically challenged neighborhood? I was. We talked about this the other day, and I was not sure I was going to say it, but since you all have smiles on your face, I'll say it. How many of you threw water balloons at white guys? I did. So we have a lot in common, okay? Now, how did I get where I am? I think that before I tell you that, what I'd like to tell you is you don't get to wherever you are without obstacles. Everybody has obstacles. Maybe an obstacle is what you look like. I don't have blonde hair and blue eyes. You don't either. And I want to tell you, when I moved to Atlanta in 1976, every story I'm going to tell you is 100% true, and I experienced it personally. When I moved to Atlanta in 1976, anybody know Buckhead in Atlanta? You know, it's like an uppity neighborhood. I happen to live there now, but at the time, people were inviting me to these little get-togethers in the neighborhoods because I was this young, 20-whatever-year-old single lawyer. And every time you went, they had all these women walking around who just got out of college. And I realized after I went to 4 or 5 of them, they were trying to get me married. So I was at this get-together, and these 3 women came up to me. Now, I'm going to tell you the story, and you have to put yourself back in 1976. These 3 women came up to me, all who were nice Atlanta ladies. I'm sure they're very nice people. And they said to me, giggling, have you seen the movie Rocky? I didn't even know what Rocky was at that time. It just had come out. And I said, no. And they said, you look just like Sylvester Stallone. Well, I look as much like Sylvester Stallone as you do, ma'am.